for a volatile nation. John Paul Gonzo for 10 News First.
Even his name's slightly sarcastic. Can I have a look at that Wikipedia page of the CIA in Iran? And if you just sort of run through this, in the early 1900s, Iran's imperial leader awarded British business exclusive property rights to what would eventually become one of the world's greatest oil reserves. British investment established the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, today known as British Petroleum. And in 1913, the British government purchased a majority of the stake in the partnership. By 1920, approximately 1.5 million tons of oil extracted by the Anglo-Persian oil firm yielded tremendous profits for the British, but Iran only earned 16% in royalty fees. For Mohammed Mossadegh and many Iranian likes, the control of Iran's oil wealth was becoming intolerable. This was grounded in the sentiment of foreign exploitation of her domestic resources and wealth. Look at this. In 1952, Britain constructed a plan for a coup and pressed the US to mount a joint operation to remove the democratically elected government of Prime Minister Mohammed Mossadegh, to install the Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi to rule Iran autocratically. It's extraordinary how often there has been CIA intervention. Have a look at this.
Pause
on April the 4th, 1954.
Pull it. Because we're not going back to it. All right. It's amazing how often the CIA gets tagged and the MI6 doesn't get tagged. Operation Ajax in 1953 to take out democratically elected leader Dr. Mohammed Mossadegh was an MI6 training op to train the new CIA on how to do coups. There's books about it. You can read Kermit Roosevelt. He was there. He was part of it. Like, so these things are, I know it's not Russell's purview to call out his own country all the time, but if you're going to lump CIA, put CIA, MI6, and Mossad, they're three peas in a pod, and they have a long history going back 80 years at this point. So Operation Ajax is about protecting British petroleum. BP Oil is Operation Ajax, because that's what the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company was. And I'll just do this real quick for you, because there is a little bit of a history lesson in this. If we go to Anglo-Persian, because that's what it was called first. Let's see, where's Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which is also called the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, now British Petroleum, 1908 to present. This particular place is not only connected to Operation Ajax, but it's connected to some other coups and some other BCCI type of activities. So Operation Ajax is on behalf of MI6 and CIA. It's a black op. It's a coup. And if we go back a page, who's it benefiting? Well, Burma Oil, which turned into BP, and all the Seven Sisters monopoly, and a whole bunch of people that are part of the, Averell Harriman from Skull and Bones. There's a whole bunch of deep state Anglo-American establishment people behind that company, and thus they have needs. And as Smedley Butler said, war is a racket. He did a bunch of dirty work for these industrialists who used, politics as their means. Like, politics is war by other means. Clausewitz. So these types of strategies, again, they're a serious part of history. They're fascinating, and it doesn't do any good when, like, Russell leaves half the credit out. I think you guys deserve just as much credit over there in Britain land as we over here for the CIA's antics. So there's that part of it. Now, the U.S.-Iran deal, we were just dealing with Iran a couple weeks ago. The United States, and we've played the clips, the United States diplomats were working with Iran so that their retaliation against Israel would be something that Israel could catch. And there was a lot of negotiation. And you could imagine negotiations going on. Now, were they working with the supreme leader, or were they working with the president who just died in those negotiations? Because here's my angle. If they're working with the supreme leader, and the supreme leader's like, look, I'm willing to do this thing so that this doesn't pop off, but we're going to need something in return. And the United States says, well, what do you need? He's like, well, I'd like my son to follow in my footsteps and be the supreme leader. And right now, Raisi is going to be the supreme leader. And, can you help us out? Well, what kind of help do you need? I need a single point of contact in that helicopter that takes out the comms and mechanicals at once. Okay. I mean, that's very doable evidence right there. So if you want it to be an inside job angle, like, they could do it. If you want it to be an outside job angle, Mossad can put some RDX or C4 in your cell phone and blow your head off, because they've done that to some of their victims. They could definitely put a charge in a helicopter and have it go off at a certain point. Now, to the point, let's go over here to the browser, because this is what I thought was interesting. You see this place, Uzi, in the red circle where he crashed? Well, what is Uzi in, regular parlance? Let's look it up. Uzi Wiki, because I'm sure they're going to tell us, like, it's that place where the guy crashed, right? Uzi Wiki. Uzi is a family of Israeli open bolt blowback operated submachine guns and machine pistols, first designed by Major Uzi in the late 40s during the Nakba. All right, so there's a history of Uzi, and it's not really this place on the map right here. But now this place on the map just happens to be named. It's just a coincidence. So it's a coincidence that the mechanical failure can create a comms failure. It's a coincidence that nobody wants to think about it. It's a coincidence, the name of the place where it crashed might have an identity clue to, like, would it be irresistible if you're the ops guys and you see a couple weeks out that he's got to make this trip over Uzi? Wouldn't you think, hey, wouldn't it be great to do the op there? I don't know. Like, other things have passed. Look at the planning sessions for Operation Ajax, or any number of coups that went on over the past 60, 70 years. Like, those meetings probably have conversations like that. So I don't think it's too far out to think it's mechanical failure because they didn't maintain the president's helicopter, but it's convenient. A couple other things, because my question is, like, how did the mechanical failure do this? LD has thoughtfully looked up the source video, because I took a screenshot to remind myself of my incredulity. And the story goes, I'm sorry, I wasn't showing you. That's the screenshot. We have the actual video right here, and LD is going to play it in a second. But the gist is, in a recent development, satellite imagery of weather systems in Iran has been removed, leading up to the helicopter crash that killed Iranian President Raisi. This occurrence has raised questions and concerns among observers, as the removal of such data is unusual and could potentially hinder investigations into the incident. Authorities have yet to provide an official statement regarding the reasons behind the removal of satellite imagery, leaving many to speculate about the motives and implications of this action. So, if after we watch this video, you think the satellite imagery has been tampered with, deleted, these sort of things that Fauci was talking about doing earlier, like they just delete the inconvenient information. Here's the day before, here's the day after, but you can't see the day of weather conditions, right? My question would be, how did the mechanical failure do that? Or how did the Iranian government edit these Western meteorological servers to delete that data? I know of only one party who might be powerful enough to do that and has motive, means, and opportunity to take out the president of Iran. So let's go ahead. This is about 2 minutes. And this is just an example. I'm just saying I saw this and I thought, if that's true, how did that happen? So let's review.
All right, everybody, welcome back. May 19th, 2024, and I wanted to check out the weather that was taking place while they said the helicopter, the president of Iran, was in a helicopter crash, and they said it was due to some weird fog. Now, I'm going to show you something very weird when it comes to the weather in this area called Jaffa. This is where the helicopter crashed. They said it was right here on the border, right near this city, Jaffa, and here's the border right here. So it was in this area somewhere. So what I did was I lined this up with a weather chart. It's not exactly easy to get weather reports for this part of the world, but I did find some. And that is here on the CIRA weather website. A very detailed chart you can use. And here we are. This is the Middle East. We are looking at Jaffa right in this area here. Can't get much closer without it being very pixelated. But I want to show you something interesting. You can see the date up here. We're on May 18th. Now this happened the morning or early in the day on the 19th. And now it's obviously a whole different time. So as I move this, you're going to notice something weird. We get into nightfall. This is the beginning of the night of the 18th for this part of the world. And as we move forward, you're going to notice something. We're going to get to the end of this bar here where we should be moving into the 19th, which is where we would see the weather and what's going on in this area when the helicopter crashed. But look what happens here. They have removed the entire 19th from the weather chart. You're going to see I'm just about at the end of the data here. Watch, it goes from the 18th right to the 20th. There it goes. Boom. It just pops from the 18th to the 20th, removing the entire 19th day. So we cannot see what was going on here no matter what setting I pick here. And I'll just show show you on this chart here, this overlay here is meant to be able to see fog, and we'd be looking right in this area here. And again, you move from the 18th across the day. These take a little bit longer to load, but once you get all the way to here, it goes from the 18th to the 20th right there. Again, one click covers an entire day. So they have removed 24 hours of weather from one of the biggest weather charts that exists. This is one of the most detailed charts we can use to find weather all over the world, and we would be able to see exactly what was going on in this area, but they have taken the data away. Once again, I'll show you. Here's May 20th, which is in about 2 hours for the East Coast, but look, I backtrack, it goes right to the 18th. So the entire day of the 19th is missing, so we can't see what was going on in this area. Take that for what it's worth. If anyone can find the radar chart for May 19th of this part of the world, I would love to see it. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Now that brings into like question. So there's a thing that's deleted, and it just happens to be coincidental that it's that part of the world on that day when that event happened, when people might like look into it and what was actually going on. And I can't help but be reminded of other instances where the tapes were just deleted. They accidentally deleted the evidence on 10/7. IDF had a whole bunch of video of what was going on, but they deleted it. That was one of the stories. There's a whole lot of other incidents where the footage. How about Epstein's murder? Where's the footage from that? Right? There's a lot of these convenient. So how many coincidences do you tolerate is my question. I'll tolerate one or two, but once we get into 3, 4, 5, I'm going to start thinking there might be something to this. Chuck Schumer was one of the first people who came out and said Israel had nothing to do with this. How do you know, Chuck? How do you know? How close are you? Do you hold passports to both places? What's going on? Do you have some insight into what's going on over there? Because Bibi was built, he was built in Philadelphia. He was born and built in Philadelphia over there. Is there a stronger American connection here that we don't know about? Also, Chucky Schumer was an instrumental part of putting Ross Ulbricht in a cage and setting him up to be caged in the first place, because he's not the prime suspect. The prime suspect had a nice meeting with the government. Maybe some people got paid in crypto, and then all of a sudden they used Ross as a patsy. So there's a lot to these sort of things, but I just wanted to point out that Chucky Schumer, he's a busy character, and he's awfully informed on what the IDF and Mossad did or didn't do. So last part would be the deletion of that satellite data. Is it uniform across other sites? Is it just a glitch on one site? I would seek to investigate more before really putting that claim together. But there are a number of points of interest and a number of people who have noticed inconveniently to the situation, because it seems like a lot of people just want you to think like it was an accident and there's nothing more to be seen there. That's okay. Accidents do happen. Accident didn't happen 9 months after the Israel attack. It didn't happen 6 months after the Israel attack. It happened within a week after the United States said, Israel, don't you dare do another thing to Iran, because they're trying to broker the situation and make sure it doesn't go into World War III. Iran, by the way, is needed by Israel. If you don't have that supreme leader, scary guy over there, there's no reason for Israel to do a lot of the things it does to its surrounding countries, because it's always about Hezbollah. That's what's funded by Iran, allegedly, whereas Hamas, that's part of the Muslim Brotherhood and funded by the state of Israel, part of that state-sponsored terror creation system they started 80 years ago.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, And this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come